Sonic final bosses almost always go hard, with killer music, incredibly fast action, and oh so menacing foes, but some are a lot more climactic and grand than others. Today, we're gonna look at the final boss in every mainline Sonic game and rank them from peak to bleak. The first final boss in the entire series certainly feels like it. It's nothing special. Eggman's in one of his layers, popping in from time to try and crush you, with some lasers that chase after you. It doesn't take advantage of his speed, takes place in a pretty contained arena, and you barely even see the Eggster, which makes it feel less personal. I'll give it this though, it poses a hell of a challenge. With no rings and the fear of getting a game over looming in your head the entire time, it's a daunting task for sure. It's the first game, so I feel bad for doing this, but it is bleak. Sonic 2's final boss is against the Death Egg robot, which is one of the most iconic fights in the series and is an excellent finale to the game. But before you even get there, you gotta go through Mecha Sonic, which is really hard the first couple attempts, but after you learn his attack pattern is pretty cake. And afterwards, chasing Robotnik to the actual mech is so badass on Eggy's part. He's just taunting the fastest thing alive by casually outrunning him. Fucking savage. The robot itself is decently threatening. It keeps Eggman's goofy aesthetic, but stands big and tall, flies around the arena with ease, and launches its spiky hands at you with potential to kill at any second, because yep, 0 rings. This entire sequence has to be done in one go, so there's no forgiveness, and you'll be doing it over and over again until you've perfected it. And even then, it can still be a little finicky, which makes it even more rage-inducing, but I'd be lying if I said this wasn't one of the best in the series. Now, compared to some later entries that up the spectacle and story significance, I can't go full on peak, though just below that feels pretty spot on. Sonic CD's final boss feels a lot like the OG. Eggman's in a mech that has little personality and poses a pretty decent threat to the Blue Blur. At least he's on screen for all of it, but the gameplay is pretty lacking and there's nothing about it that screams final boss. Swap this out for any other one in the game and I wouldn't even bat an eye. It's not even hard and you can take it on with rings, so getting hit doesn't do shit. I'd say reaching the fight is far more difficult than what takes place in that arena, so it's pretty damn bleak. In Sonic 3 and Knuckles, the final boss starts off with yet another humiliating Eggman chase, before he takes control of an even larger Egg Mech. This thing is pretty freaking intimidating. It still feels very Robotnik, but scraps the fun colors of the Death Egg robot in favor of a gray and red scheme that should be taken far more seriously. The fight starts with him attacking you head-on and grabbing at the stage, then shifts to his mech chasing you down while firing a massive laser at you, which is tough to avoid, but overcoming that and tracking down his getaway vehicle finally ends the fight, and kicks off the next phase, the Doomsday Zone. Here, regardless of how many Chaos Emeralds you've collected, Sonic goes super and flies through space, dodging rocks and missiles to defeat one final giant fucking Eggman mech. You can feel Eggman's desperation here. He's got too many last resorts to even count, and truly goes all out for this fight. And everything going on in the background only further builds on that. The whole planet's behind you, the arena finally plays into Sonic's speed a bit, and it's constantly falling apart to create more urgency. This is absolutely a peak final boss. Sonic 3D Blast has a surprisingly ambitious final fight. The gameplay's still abysmal, but the robot's design being a literal egg is awesome, and it's got a pretty good variety of attacks too. The arena even shifts and makes you move around a little bit, which is more than I can say about the Sonic 1 or CD final fights. It's one of the best parts of the entire game, and while that doesn't say much, I'd honestly take the fight over Sonic 1's. It tries something different and fails because, well, it's Sonic 3D Blast. What'd you expect? In Sonic Adventure, the last fight in Sonic's story is the Egg Viper, but the true final boss is against Perfect Chaos in the last story, and it's a pretty spectacular moment. That pre-rendered cutscene they show at the beginning finally takes place, and we watch as Chaos absolutely decimates Station Square. Showing how easily he destroys an entire city really builds the guy up, and probably made Sonic shit himself. Oh, and he wipes out Eggman's entire ship with one little blah. So Sonic has to go super for the first time in the game, which makes this moment feel that much more special. He's ready to go, and will stop at nothing to take down this elemental monster. The fight itself is easy as piss. Now, open your heart playing while you blast through the flooded remains of a city feels pretty badass, but all you do is avoid some pretty small blasts from Chaos and zoom through his body a few times. The second phase adds a couple more obstacles, but it's still painfully easy, and that's that. It's fun to play, and would be outright disrespectful to not appreciate the climactic moment it builds, but it lacks a whole lot of substance beyond that, so it's going here. Sonic Adventure 2's final sequence is absolute cinema, but the fight itself is pretty so-so. The build-up is monumental. Sonic and Shadow put their differences aside and team up to take down the true Ultimate Life form, this giant fucking lizard. They both use the Chaos Emeralds and turn into their super forms, which is so badass and iconic, but the gameplay that it leads to is just kinda okay. Look, flying through space while Live and Learn plays is and always will be epic, but there's no denying it's pretty easy to avoid the lasers and little floating bombs. It's really cool that you switch between Sonic and Shadow throughout, and they save the planet from a blast that would have literally shattered it to pieces, so it's a hell of an accomplishment. If the battle itself were just a little more interactive and better, I would have put this in peak already, but as it is, it's an excellent finale. Sonic Advance's true final boss has Sonic once again going super, and this time fighting on the previously decimated moon. It captures a similar atmosphere to Sonic 3's finale, but feels more clunky, it makes the mech look like a knockoff Transformer, and gives Sonic way too much power. His rings depleting kinda counters that, but the game's all too generous with giving you more, so unless you really try to lose, you can't. It's a breeze, and while it tries to feel like Sonic 3's, it pretty obviously fails. Okay, Sonic Advance 2 definitely wants to be like Sonic 3K. Super Sonic's flying through space again and taking on a big Eggman mech, but like the last one, fails to capture the look of Eggman's tech, and also has no difficulty. I'm not asking for these things to be Dark Souls, but taking a couple tries never hurt anyone, especially as the true ending of the game. It sorta tries and fails for sure. Sonic Heroes has one of the best final sequences in the entire series. With Metal Madness taking his full, wicked strong form, it takes all 12 characters coming together to put a dent into him, a damn formidable foe. Each team fights him in a somewhat different way, and it's crazy seeing characters like Charmy the Bee and Cream the Rabbit help to fight a literal god. The final phase featuring Team Sonic, though, is definitely the most hype. It feels similar to Adventure 2's finale, but now the giant thing you're battling in space looks f***ing terrifying, and he's a lot more menacing and capable. Also, hot take, but What I'm Made Of, the vocal theme playing during this fight, is even better than Live and Learn, and not as iconic, but it rocks out and is a savage note to go out on. This is unquestionably peak. Advance 3's final boss has so many different phases. You start out by fighting Jamerl in hand-to-hand combat, and already, this dude takes more brain power to beat than any previous Advance final fight. Then you gotta fight Eggman in yet another one of his mechs, which again is pretty damn hard to beat, but that's mostly because of the clunky controls, not stellar design. But then Jamerl takes the Chaos Emeralds and becomes Ultimate Jamerl, and smacks Eggman to the ground because he's worthless. Somehow though, Sonic gets a hold of the Emeralds, goes super, and takes to the skies, with Eggman quickly following suit, and the two working together for one of the first times in the series to take down a common threat. I'm sorry though, this did not feel all that warranted. You're already Super Sonic, and you beat this guy up not a full minute ago. This last phase is nothing all too special either. Eggman exposes the weak point, Sonic drills it, rinse and repeat, though it's once again got a fair amount of challenge, and there's more than one or two attack patterns, which is great. It's without a doubt the best finale in the trilogy, but cannot go higher than mid-tier. Devil Doom certainly fits the tone of the rest of Shadow the Hedgehog, being super dark, filled with malice, and way creepier looking than any boss we've seen yet. It's also the first time we see Shadow go super all on his own, which is almost as cool as the both of them doing it back in Adventure 2. The fight itself, though, is another fly through space, attack when there's an opening kind of thing. But now Shadow can shoot, there's way more stuff to avoid, and the guy you're actually fighting has way more narrative significance than a random monster Eggman revived. It could be better, but for the game that it's an impressive last chapter, and I'm willing to say it's on par with Adventure 1's. It's not as polished, but the atmosphere is intense, there's some decent challenge, and it tugs at the same strings the Adventure 2 finale does, so it's going here. Sonic Rush also goes for that Adventure 2 feel, featuring both Super Sonic and Burning Blaze joining forces to annihilate the Egg Salamander. They take turns whacking the robot and avoiding a good amount of unique attacks. It keeps things pretty varied and doesn't feel like it's dragged out, even with that 4-minute runtime. And the fatal blow having both of them come together is a super satisfying finale, and it's almost a top tier one, but the lackluster design of the robot itself mixed with the recycled format of Sonic Goes Super with X character leaves this right below that as an excellent fight. Sonic 06 does it again. Now, Sonic, Shadow, and Silver all go Golden God mode and fight the all-powerful Solaris in the past, present, and future. I won't lie though, having all three Hedgehogs contributing for this final act is f***ing rad. You're constantly switching between the trio, and while what they're each doing doesn't vary too much, it still plays decently well, especially considering how broken the rest of this game is. It functions and poses some genuine challenge. It's about as good of a finale as you could ask for in the game, and the song blaring in the background, His World, is tier, and gives this game the boost it needs for a respectable, excellent finale tier. Rush Adventure features a near-identical finale to the original game. Sonic and Blaze power up together and tackle the Egg Wizard, which I'll give some credit to. This mech has a hell of a lot more personality than the last one. But Sonic and Blaze now take it on at the same time, which isn't a bad thing, but it feels like something just one of them could handle, honestly. And it plays fine, nothing all too crazy. It's about half as long as the Egg Salamander fight in the first Rush game, and feels like a watered-down version of that overall. I'd say it gets some points for style, but loses it in the creativity department. It's mid. Sonic Unleashed closes with some exceptional fights. The Egg Dragoon is one of Eggman's slickest mechs yet, but that's not even part of the final boss. That's just on the way down to Dark Gaia, who handles business with Eggman, and we gotta fight the earth-shattering creature ourselves. The first phase has you take control of the Gaia Colossus, who's a bulky, slow amalgamation of different temples, and as you approach the monster, you avoid everything he's throwing at you until you get up close and personal, where you do a couple quick-time events for some melee attacks. Then you switch to Sonic's perspective and play a short little section of level on those temple ruins, avoiding the weird Gaia tentacles and eventually hitting one of his weak spots. You do that a few times until he somehow morphs again into his true final form, which is genuinely scary. If I saw this as a kid, I'm shitting myself. Sonic does the only thing he really can do in this situation, and yeah, these cutscenes are pretty freaking beautiful and cinematic, huh? You're not up in space this time, but being at the core of the planet with all the lava and rocks falling is kinda more epic, and it's sure as hell more unique. The gameplay in this phase is also one of Super Sonic's best. He feels OP without being completely broken and making it too easy. It's balanced quite well. You knock down all his different arms to disable the force field, then do more QuickTime events to slash through the beast bit by bit. Oh, and the freaking music is remarkable. Endless Possibilities is again one of the best vocal themes in the series, and the remix for this final fight matches the intensity of the spectacle all the visuals provide. This is peak cinema. Sonic 4 Episode 1's final boss actually takes a little creative liberty in the way it steals other fights in the series. This last stage is a gauntlet that brings back a ton of classic Eggman fights back to back to back, but it's still not all that hard. You get checkpoints between fights and access to rings, so it's really not all that bad. It more tests your patience than actual skill, because good god is this fight long. The game as a whole takes under an hour to beat, and this sequence takes over 10% of that runtime. That's absurd. I appreciate what it tries to do, but it does not do it well. Sonic Colors has a dramatic finale that's way better than I'd expect from this game. The Nega Wisp Armor is a killer mech that uses all the Wisp powers that have been on your side the entire game against you, which is super refreshing and shows why Eggman wanted to harness these creatures in the first place. It's probably one of the more impressive robots he's ever built. Each attack uses a different Wisp ability, and as you land hits, more aliens join your side in helping take him down. And this entire battle takes place as you're running away from the destroyed park and back down to the planet below, which is a perfect setting that leans into Sonic's speed. You're quick-stepping and jumping over obstacles the entire time. It feels like a challenging obstacle course and doesn't go against what you've been taught from playing the rest of the game, which is sick. After all the Wisps are recovered, they all come together to form the final Color Blaster, which sends Eggman packing. And I know I keep saying this, but the music is fantastic. It has this orchestral and intense feel that makes the stakes feel that much higher, and it brings the entire thing together as one of the best final bosses in the series. Peak. Despite Generations being better than Colors in just about every way, the final boss falls short to a laughable degree. You got both classic and modern Eggman teaming up with the Time Eater, which sounds like a pretty damn strong alliance, but the Eggmen do nothing, and the Time Eater is way weaker than he's shown to be in cutscenes. Just before the fight, he knocks out both Sonics, and it seems like the heroes are cooked, but then all his friends start cheering him on, and the Chaos Emeralds activate to make them both Super Sonics. This could have been a really great moment, but I think even Sonic 06 handles the whole fallen hero thing better, and even despite having 2 Supersonics for the first time ever, it doesn't feel all that climactic. And then the gameplay makes you inch your way toward the Time Eater while the rest of the Sonic gang calls out a bunch of way too obvious shit. It's annoying, repetitive, and a letdown even in this game's story. Why not give him one attack from each previous final boss, or have the fight move through a bunch of different eras? Instead, Clock World. It's bland, uninspired, and just not fun, so it's going down in bleak. Sonic 4 Episode 2 makes the final boss more of a stage than a typical enemy, which is a really welcome new idea. Eggman's got a bunch of rings around him, and Sonic's gotta navigate through, avoid all the zappy parts, and get to the center to land a hit. It's more focused on precision platforming than most other bosses, which is a great way to end a platforming game. I mean, Tails can be a bit OP, but the thought's there. It doesn't feel as impactful because it's Sonic 4 and there's not much build-up, but it's still an overall good fight for the series. I'd say substance over style, but this is close enough. Sonic Lost World has basically a remix of the Colors finale, but it feels a lot less earned here. Eggman pretends to be on a team with you for most of the game, then surprise surprise, backstabs Sonic and has one final mech for him to take down. It takes place in a generic-ass lava level, the mech itself is boring, and it straight up copies attacks from the Colors fight. It still plays pretty darn well, but lacks much identity, originality, and story significance. It tries to be a copycat and fails to be good. The final level in Sonic Mania starts out pretty tame. You take on Eggman in one of his wacky contraptions, but after you blow that to smithereens, you're teleported by the Phantom Ruby along with Eggman to some random void where the Phantom King awaits you to fight over possession of the Ruby. Sonic goes super and fights in a 3-way conflict for once, trying to get the Ruby himself and keep it out of the clutches of evil. It's a great idea to have multiple opposing sides and makes the battle feel much more chaotic. Even as Super Sonic, you're getting whacked around and avoiding 2 different enemies with unique attacks. It's decently tough to overcome. The ending is kinda odd though. Sonic gets sucked into the Phantom Ruby's portal, and that's that, which doesn't feel satisfying, but the day is clearly saved and he overpowered 2 undeniably strong mechs. The concept's there, but it doesn't capture the scale of classic fights like Sonic 2 and 3, even if it plays similarly well. I think it's a mid-tier final boss. For as bad as Sonic Forces is, the Death Egg robot that caps off the game is seemingly one of the most powerful foes in the series. Just before the fight, the Resistance believes it's over and they've won, but then this dude shows up, revives his hologram army, and says the Phantom Ruby was incorporated into this robot's design, meaning there's no weak point and not a thing they can do to stop him, except beat him like any other boss. This thing's not messing around though. The first 2 phases put classic Sonic and the Rookie into small little stage-like arenas where they avoid some attacks and send rocks back at the machine, because apparently no weapon's strong enough to damage it, but these fucking stones can. It doesn't make much sense, but implements the 2 gameplay styles in ways that work really well, so I'm not complaining too much. The final phase though, it's Colors again. It plays fine and all, and he's got some new attacks, but it's disappointing to end another one of these games with. I'm not gonna lie though, Sonic Forces makes Eggman out to be more capable and threatening than ever. The fact that he's silent throughout the fight drives that home even harder. Using each playable character's gameplay the way they were intended to be works great, and makes this stand out from the rest of these bosses, so it's honestly the perfect ending to this god-awful game. I'm gonna say it's an excellent finale. Sonic Frontiers builds up this final battle beautifully, with Eggman contributing one last emerald to help Sonic go super, him kicking the shit out of the final Titan, and then blasting off into space to take on the End, while Sage possesses the last Titan shell and follows him up there. This fight, though, is against a giant rock up in space. The music goes for a more cinematic and emotional feel, which is a decision, and it plays like an arcade space shooter. It has some challenge, sure, but after all the wicked cool Titan battles in the game, this is your true ending? I can't give it much credit. At least it tries to be different, but it's like the worst fight in the game. The Sonic Superstars true ending has you fighting this giant dragon, which is without a doubt the hardest supersonic fight in the entire series. Half the fight, he's in the background and you can't even touch him. Then he's got all these black hole attacks that insta-kill, all the while your ring count ticks down and will get you if you're not careful. Also, I complained about Sonic 4 Episode 1's final boss being long, but this one takes even more time. It's like 7 minutes, and there's not even much room to go any faster. You're waiting for the dragon a majority of it, and can only attack when he wants you to. I sorta appreciate the spike in challenge, but it goes over the top and kinda unfair with it. I respect what it tries to do, but wouldn't take it over any of the battles in mid-tier, so... Shadow Generations has a baller finale. Devil Doom makes a triumphant return and looks more fearsome than ever, and the trippy Radical Highway backdrop fits this final moment perfectly, as Shadow rids himself of his toxic ties once and for all. It uses all of his different Doom abilities throughout the battle, which is key to a good boss fight. It feels like a super hard level with a demon lord trying to make it even worse. But the final phase versus Neo Devil Doom takes the cake. It relies on the Doom Wings, the best ability of them all, then has Shadow outdoing Doom's chaos control and proceeding to beat the ever-living f*** out of him. It's the most stunning and gorgeously choreographed knockout in the series, and if that's not peak, I don't know what is. And there you have it.